It starts before sunrise. Carts drop into frozen ruts. Oxen breathe steam. Trestles go up in the mud, and a woman sets out butter in a clay pot before the light is good enough to see her hands. At the edge of the square stands a man with a stick and a wax tally, taking a coin here, a coin there. Watch him for an hour, and something stops making sense. He collects almost nothing. A penny, a halfpenny, and half the people walking past hand him nothing at all, and he lets them go. That man works for the Lord who owns this square, and the Lord paid the King of England a small fortune for the right to have him standing there. The tax will never repay it. He knows that. He paid anyway. So what did he actually buy? So, you want to own a medieval marketplace, an open square, a crowd, a tax on everything that changes hands, the simplest business ever invented. Except three things refuse to fit. Lords paid the crown real money for these charters, and the tax was almost never worth the fee. English law has said, for 800 years, that no new market may open within 6 2/3 miles of an old one. Not roughly 6, exactly 6 2/3. And in the summer of 2020, a stall market selling bread and vegetables in a Leicestershire pub car park was shut down using a charter signed by Henry III in 1227. Hold on to that one. You cannot simply declare a market. You need a grant from the Crown, and the Crown treats it like a product with a price list. King John fixed standard fees for sealing charters in 1199, and his clerks opened a roll to track who had paid. England's charter roll begins life as an accounts book. The prices survive. In the reign of Edward I, a landowner named Miles Sykerd paid 11 marks for the charter of a market and a fair, about £7. For a knight of middling means, a serious check, and it buys nothing on its own. Before the seal goes on, the king's officers ride out and ask whether your market would damage the crown's revenue or anyone else's. If the answer is yes, the application dies. A real fee, an investigation, a refusal you can't appeal, for a penny tax on butter. The obvious answer is that the toll is worth more than it looks. It isn't. Market tolls were tiny. Studies of inland trade in this period put them at rarely more than 1% of the value of goods traded. 1 penny in 100. And that's before the people who never paid. Food bought for your own household was usually free. Small peasant loads, apples, butter in an earthen pot, often paid nothing at all. That woman may trade all morning and owe the Lord not a single coin. Then there are the exemptions the lords wrote themselves. When the Bishop of Worcester built a new town at Stratford-upon-Avon, he freed his own tenants from toll entirely. His flagship market let its most loyal customers trade for free, forever. A serious payment to the king, for a tax that is capped low, dodged widely, and waived by the man collecting it. The toll was never the business. The value was hiding in a clause that doesn't read like money at all. It reads like a restriction. Once you hold a market, the law protects you from competition inside a fixed circle. And the size of that circle comes from reasoning that is almost domestic. The legal writer Bracton said it out. A person walks 20 miles in a day. Divide the day into 3. 1/3 to reach the market, 1/3 to buy and sell, 1/3 to get home before dark, because the roads after dark belong to other people. 6 2/3 miles, the furthest a customer can possibly come. So the law drew that circle around your square and made it illegal for anyone to hold a rival market inside it. Every farmer, weaver, and brewer within 10 miles now has one lawful place to sell. They don't come because you're cheaper. They come because there is nowhere else the law will let them stand. You weren't buying the right to tax a market. You were buying the right to be the only one, which changes what you're really selling. Not the tax, the ground. Before 1196, Stratford-upon-Avon is a village at a river crossing owned by the Bishop of Worcester. That year, Richard I grants a Thursday market. The bishop doesn't just hold the market, he builds a town around it. He lays out plots, each about 1/4 of an acre, running back from the street in long strips. Anyone may take one. The rent is fixed at 12 pence a year, and the plot is yours to keep and pass to your children. Picture the offer. A shilling a year buys a shopfront on the only legal marketplace for 10 miles in any direction, and your son inherits it. People took it. By 1252, there are around 240 of these plots. As farmland, that ground earned the bishop about 16 shillings a year. Cut into plots around a chartered market, it brought in roughly £12. 15 times the return, on land he already owned, without plowing an acre of it. Within 50 years, the village is a town of about 1,000 people, all paying rent to the man who owns the square they trade on. The market was never the product, the ground was. But a square full of strangers creates a problem the bishop hadn't paid for. Solving it turned out to be worth money too. Outsiders bring disputes, bad debts, short wait, wool that isn't what it was sold as, and a merchant who walked 40 miles cannot wait 3 weeks for an ordinary court. So markets ran their own, and its name is the best in English legal history, the Court of Pie Powder, from the French for dusty feet. The feet of the trader who has just walked in off the road, still carrying the dirt of it. It sat while the market sat, run by the Lord's steward or the town's bailiffs, with merchants as jury, and it was expected to reach a verdict within a day and a half. It could fine you, put you in the pillory in front of the crowd you came to sell to, and if you couldn't pay, seize your goods and sell them where you stood. Every fine was income. So the Lord owns the square, the rules, the court that enforces them, and the judge, who is his own servant. He wrote the law, appointed the man who applied it, and was paid when it was broken. At the top of this business, that power stops looking commercial altogether. For 16 days a year, the bishops of Winchester didn't run a market. They ran a city. The Fair of St Giles was granted by William II in 1096, and Henry III stretched it to 16 days. The magistrates of Winchester handed over the keys to the city gates. The bishop's officers took the gates. They took the great weighing beam. They appointed their own mayor, bailiff, and coroner, and sent guards onto the roads to collect toll from anyone traveling in. Then the proclamation: within 7 leagues of this fair, no merchandise may be bought or sold anywhere but here. Break it, and your goods are forfeit. Winchester's own shopkeepers were closed down, in their own city, by the man running the rival event. The return? A pipe roll from the reign of Richard I records the takings at £146, 8 shillings and 7 pence, for 16 days, at which point you'd expect every lord in England to get rich. Almost none of them did. The first thing that kills you is the crown. A statute of Edward I deals with lords who charge outrageous tolls, and the punishment is specific. The king seizes the franchise of the market. A bailiff who does it without his lord's order repays the trader double and spends 40 days in prison. Squeeze too hard and you don't get fined. You lose the business. The second is that most of these ventures never happened. Historians who separate chartered markets from functioning ones find that huge numbers never traded. At Culworth in Northamptonshire, a market was granted in 1264, was almost certainly dead by 1330, was granted again in 1374, and there is no record it ever worked. 2 charters. No market. East Anglia acquired markets faster than anywhere in England in the 13th century. It also had the highest failure rate afterwards. Everyone had the same idea, in the same fields, inside each other's circles. The third is slower. You can keep the charter and lose the business anyway. At Thetford, once the tolls were leased out, the market court emptied. 42 sittings in 1436. 22 in the 1450s, 5 in 1479. The monopoly was still legally perfect. The trade had gone elsewhere. Then the risk nobody was underwriting. In 1348, the plague takes close to 1/3 of your customers, and your charter still says you're the only market for 10 miles. A monopoly on an empty square is worth nothing. So what does one of these actually earn? At the bottom, a village market on a manor. A few pounds for the charter, no town built, a handful of shillings a year in tolls, and resentment from every neighbor inside your circle. Most are gone within a century. In the middle, the planted town. About £12 a year from ground that made 16 shillings as fields, plus court fines, plus a settlement that grows without another penny of investment. This is the version that works, because the bishop stopped selling access to a crowd and started selling addresses next to one. At the top, a great fair. £146 from 16 days, plus the temporary right to govern a city and shut down its shops. Which brings us back to that car park in Leicestershire. In 2020, a villager set up 9 stalls about 5 miles outside Loughborough. Bread, flowers, vegetables. The council closed him down, and the instrument they reached for was the charter Henry III granted in 1227 and the 6 2/3 mile rule that came with it. No tolls, no fare, no bishop, no king. 800 years later, the asset still worked. Because the man with the stick and the wax tally was never the business. He was the decoration. What his lord bought was a piece of ground the law had made unavoidable, and the certainty that everyone within a day's walk would have to come to it. Traders come and go. Charters don't.